They say they haven't changed Grant's Law, but what's left of it is really only a shell of what it was, and that's really an insult to Grant's memory. So it's really sad to see.
Now, Grant's Law really came because of Grant De Patie.
A lot of people will remember the story of Grant De Patie. He was a worker in a gas station in Maple Ridge, who in 2005 was killed in a gas and go.
My name is Doug De Patie. I'm the father of Grant De Patie, the Maple Ridge gas station attendant who was dragged to his death in 2005. We wanted now to address those underlying causes that led Grant out of the gas station. Grant was asked by his employer to get the license plate number of the vehicle. Another purchaser who was using another pump came in and said to Grant, that car there has got the ignition punched out. It's got a screwdriver in the ignition. The camera at that pump didn't work. So he had to go outside and go behind or in front of the car to get the license plate number. The last thing that Grant was seen doing on camera was grabbing a pencil and a piece of paper and running out the door to get the license plate number of that car. Grant was hit 60 feet from the pumps. He wasn't standing in front of the car. He was hit 60 feet from the pumps, and he was hit from behind. And he was dragged for 7 kilometers to his death. When Grant was found, in his pants was the license plate number written on a piece of paper in his back pocket. So by the time he was hit, he already had the number written down and he already had it in his pocket. The car sped off with Grant trapped under the car. Grant's hat fell off. The other kid went up, took the hat off, and that's how he was caught the next day. Because when the police saw him in the community, they knew the hat on the cameras, and he was wearing Grant's hat. That's how they knew who the other kid was. He was wearing the hat as a memento. And the young lad that hit Grant, it was proven in the court of law that he bragged about to his friends about what had happened. He told them that he heard Grant's screams under the vehicle and continued to drive. People's jaws hit the floor when they heard of what had happened. It was so horrific, and it was such a terrible way to die. And the news of the screams coming from under the vehicle, and it was horrific. And it was horrific what my family had to go through and what employers were putting employees through, because Grant was put in that position. Grant died trying to do what was right, but he was, so to speak, that store's security force. I was blind to what was going on in the gas station. Grant had told me before that Grant had gas and dashes at his gas station and actually was having wages deducted. His employer wanted them to deduct wages from him, and he said no, he wouldn't allow them to deduct the wages from him, and it was only a week later he was fired. Something about not putting the pops correctly in the cooler. They just picked some random thing and said, you're fired. And he had altercations with people at gas stations. It's a tough job. It's probably one of the top 10 most dangerous jobs. And I believe it is. And of course, it's a low pay job. My father-in-law, Chet Krellin, and myself came up with an idea to lobby for Pay Before You Pump, to try and eliminate the crime that led to Grant's death.
That led to a campaign of the DePatie family, the BC Federation of Labour, and the Young Workers Committee at the BC Federation of Labour.
What we realized very quickly when we sat down and talked to the family and began to talk amongst ourselves was that this death was completely avoidable. There was no need for this death to happen. Some very simple steps could be taken to avoid this.
One of them was the pay at the pump, which now people are used to as sort of just part of, it's understood that that's what you do at gas stations now, and that has alleviated a lot of the danger. And the other part of it was some regulations around working late at night. If you're working late at night, then you have to have more than one person on shift, or you have to have a physical barrier.
So we started our campaign, working with the DePatie family to demand the WCB and the government bring in regulations that says 3 things, we said. Pay before you pump, so you don't have no more gas and dashes. Two, lock the door at night after 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning. Not that, it's not dangerous other times, but it's more dangerous at those times. Or three, have two people working between 10 and 6 in the morning. And there were a series of hearings all across the province. We went out on at least 3 occasions and interviewed people who actually worked in these jobs.
Well, at the BC Federation of Labour, we have a Young Workers Committee, and that committee did a lot of the actual legwork in the initial fight for Grant's Law. We did a lot of the going around late at night, doing surveys, talking to workers about their situations, about what they had experienced on the job, and basically gathering the evidence for why Grant's Law was so important. We were, I think, surprised as well to see how many people had actually experienced robberies late at night while working alone, or their co-workers had. There was a couple of them where it had been very recent, within the last month, they had actually experienced this happen.
BC Federation of Labour helped us to gain support and momentum with the cause for Grant's Law. Grant's Law had grown from just pay before you pump to, of course, trying to address the underlying causes that led Grant out of the gas station, which now we were looking for training and orientation for new and young workers, and hazard assessment, elimination and control, 2 people on and or barriers, those sorts of things, to try and actually make a comprehensive package that would make gas station employees safer. We met with, and we're basically called and met with Olga Illich, who is now the Minister of Labour. And Olga Illich actually told us that she was willing to do the pay before you pump. And we had a lot of support from the NDP party. We had support from the Liberal Party, obviously, because that's who Olga Illich was the Liberal Party in power at that time. And of course the BC Federation of Labour and all the unions. And we all gathered as one at these meetings and traveled the province. Probably, we went a couple rounds of it, so we probably went to about 14 different hearings.
And so we started our campaign, and we went to all these hearings, and we did public campaign to basically get the WCB to review the regulations and to bring in new ones. And to their credit, they did. And to their credit, they held these hearings all over the province. And at the end of it all, they concluded we should not have any, we should have pay before you pump. We should have the door locked after 10 o'clock, between 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. And it should be 2 people working if you don't lock the door. So in a sense, we had made a major victory for keeping people who work alone at night safe. And we were very happy with that. Frankly, I know the DePatie family was extremely happy that Grant DePatie didn't die in vain, that something positive came out of his death, and they worked really, really hard on that. And I think they were proud of the fact that they'd won that battle, and we were all proud of them for sure. So we went away feeling pretty good. We were pretty excited. We had the best, we thought, regulations now for late night workers in the whole country. We had made a major breakthrough for protecting workers on the job at night. Well, unfortunately, we celebrated too soon. Then the employers got going. And they went to the government, and they yelled at Gordon Campbell, and Gordon Campbell yelled at Labour Minister, and it became a big issue over in Victoria, then it became a big issue at WorkSafe. And at the end of the day, suddenly we know, we have to review this. And leading the charge were the liquor stores and Max Milk and the convenience stores. And they're not the small mom and pop operations. These were the big corporate ones.
It was affecting the bottom line. So WorkSafe BC caved to them, and we went to another hearing stage.
And so they hoisted the regulation, they being the WCB, hoisted the regulation and put a new process in place with option number 3. So they didn't say, let's get rid of the 2 ones that really work. They just gave you an easy out, which was you could put up a camera and take a picture of somebody robbing you, stabbing you, or whatever. And you could have a button you could press, and that would be an emergency button that would be connected to the employer, maybe, and somebody might come.
They were all options they had already had in place before Grant's death, these Macs, and they didn't work.
We went around to all the liquor stores. And we said, so what do you think? The people, many of them had 2 people working. So don't forget, this whole law is about rewarding the worst players. But the bottom line in the liquor store is when we found people working alone, they were afraid and didn't want to. And when we found people who worked with two people, they were clear, we don't want to work with one person.
This is the one, yeah, was a long night. This is the Max convenience store that we had to sit in this spring when they first introduced the watering down of Grant's Law. And it was actually the night that the change took effect. We arrived at 7 p.m. that night. We had invited the media for a press conference, and actually they'd caught wind that we were coming. So they had two people on shift and they had a security guard as well. I suppose in order to show how they take safety seriously, right? What they didn't know was we were planning to stay overnight, and we actually did into the morning. Come 10 o'clock or so, they were down to one guy in there working alone, and as you can see, they've got one guy alone working there tonight as well. So of course the protest was at this location because Max convenience stores played a really leading role in the lobbying to water down Grant's Law. It seemed a fitting location for our protest. Although that being said, there's unfortunately a lot of businesses, different kinds of businesses, where they do the same practices. They have people working alone late at night. There's a Subway restaurant just right here as well, also open 24 hours. Also had one guy working alone that whole night, and I talked to the worker there that day, and that was the normal practice. So. Yeah, here it is up here. So we're here at a Chevron gas station in Vancouver, and one of the arguments that was made by Max convenience stores and some of the others that were lobbying against Grant's Law was that the regulations of having two people on or having a physical barrier to protect the workers are too expensive, and that it's not competitive if they have to do these things. So one of the reasons that we're here at this gas station is that it's one of the few examples that you can find around BC of gas stations where actually they do have those measures in place. In fact, they have both two people working, and they lock the doors at 11 o'clock and have a window that they serve people through so that they are actually protected physically. Despite that, this gas station's been open for years and obviously hasn't gone belly up yet from the expense of keeping their workers safe.
If you had a 17 or an 18-year-old and they came home and said to you, "Hey Dad, hey Mom, I just got a job." "Where's the job?" "Oh, I'm working down at the gas station. I got the 10 o'clock at night shift until the 6 in the morning shift. I'm working by myself." What would you say? What you'd say is, "No you don't. We don't want you working there." Well, if it's not good enough for my kid and your kid and your kid and your kid to work there, then it's not good enough for anybody to work there.
Why, when a gas station is closed, do they bar the windows and lock the doors? As soon as you bring an employee in there, a person, you unlock the doors and pull away the bars and all the safety infrastructure that you have to protect your staff. In my opinion, the third option should absolutely be withdrawn. I think that we should just basically, write your labor minister, support Grant's Law and support the BC Federation of Labor in the quest to try and get this addressed. And there's going to be more deaths. We're going to be back on this topic.
I don't think there's any health and safety laws that are safe as long as the Liberal government's in power. In May 2013, I want people to walk into the booth to vote. And when they look down at who they're going to vote for, I want them to think of Grant De Patie and all the other people in this province who have died unnecessarily over the last decade. And I want them to vote for safe workplaces.
Sad to see that it's going to be somebody's family member that's going to have to die. And you know what I'm wondering? Who is going to take accountability when that happens?